what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2002 Honda Civic Si. Up front is a 2.0 liter inline 4 and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this EP3 Civic Si for two reasons. First of all, I've never done the EP3 or this particular generation of Civic Si, so I'm always excited by stuff like that. But the second reason is the fact that the EP3 was very odd here in the United States because this didn't share a body style with any other Civic that we got. We couldn't buy a Civic hatchback here in the United States unless it was the Si. This is what the normal Civic looked like. Very different. And so it is quite the oddball that I am very excited to share with you today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that K20 2.0 liter inline 4 under the hood. Well, this was the first generation of Honda Civic Si to jump up to the K series. Previously, they used the B series, which is a good engine, but the K series was something different and special, and it's something that people still swap into their vehicles today. Now, this is the K20A3, which was the more economy-based K20. It wasn't that super high revving one, but like I said, this was the first Si to even get the K20, so I'd like to give it some pedigree just for that. It made about 160 horsepower back here in 2002, which isn't anything too crazy, but it is still notable and it's a very fun drive. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed manual transmission, but as you'll notice, it is bolted to the dashboard. Again, the only generation of Civic, at least so far, to do it this way. Now, the theory behind this is that the shifter is very, very close to the steering wheel, so you don't have to reach far when you're on track, and that is true. However, you do lose some of the armrest, and on long drives, it can kind of get annoying because you have to reach all the way up. But it is one of the staples that made the EP3 so weird. Last but not least, the Civic Si is front-wheel drive here in 2002. However, it did not get a limited slip differential, something that was notably missing at the time and sort of hurt this car's pedigree just a little bit. How does it feel to finally drive an EP3 here on the Shooting Cars channel? Well, I've really enjoyed it. I've always adored Honda shifters, and it's no different here in the EP3. It's absolutely wonderful. The driving experience is much like all the other Civic SIs. There's nothing too different there. It is a decently rigid chassis. I think Honda learned a lot from this chassis when producing the Honda Fit later on. And honestly, the lacking of limited slip diff is not noticeable around town driving it here today. Now, if I had two Civic SIs from different generations back to back on the track, I'm sure I would notice something, but for day to day, if you want something to take to class, something to go to work, school, you're not gonna really notice that lack of LSD. Visibility is also really good. It is kind of an egg-shaped vehicle and has big windows, so I really appreciate that. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my tachometer, in the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my coolant temperature and fuel. On the steering wheel, we do get cruise control, but that's pretty much it. And off to the left, we have a climate control vent, a cup holder, one of many. We'll do the big friggin' bottle test later. Cruise control button and our power mirrors. Moving out of the door, we have power locks and power windows along with our child locks. And moving into the center, we have 2 climate control vents, an aftermarket radio, and our climate controls off to the left and bottom. And then down below, we have the hazard switch, that funky shifter, and a seemingly dead switch. Kind of odd placement there, especially because the Si was a higher trim. Down below, we do have a 12-volt outlet and 2 more cup holders. So let's round robin the cup holders here in the Civic Si. Then we get our parking brake and some extra cubby space down below, and we'll move on to the seats. The seats have green inserts. Again, very strange. The Si has always had red accents, but for this generation, green. They are decently comfortable, and being a bigger guy, I actually do fit in them pretty handsomely, which can't be said about all Civic sporty seats. The brand new Civic Type R I can sometimes struggle with, so it's nice to see that I at least fit in these. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. Getting in the back of the EP3, and once I am back here, it's actually not bad. So it is a coupe. It's a two-door hatchback, which, again, we didn't really get much of in the US, and we'll talk about that later on. No real amenities back here at all. I get these weird clip things. I don't really know what that's for. But I'm in the back of the EP3. You can take 4 people back here, and honestly, even sitting behind myself would be fine. But it is still a coupe. It's still annoying to get into. Even though it is a hatchback coupe, it's still not great. I would definitely prefer a sedan SI of the later or earlier generations. I actually don't think they did earlier generation sedan SIs, did they? EK, EG? No, I don't think so. So later on, they did do sedan SIs for the 8th gen. This is the 7th gen. So if you do want backseat space, plus that K20 and all the SI goodness, I would highly recommend seeking out a little bit later of one. I believe those were 07 is when they started that. Anyway, let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. Right around the back of the Civic SI, little handle here to pull up, and you do get a really nice privacy cover. Do like that a lot, and you get all the hatchback goodness that comes, well, with a hatchback. You also get this little cargo net, which I like a lot. No crazy amenities or anything back here, but this is a big drawing point to this generation of SI, because as we'll talk about later, they didn't do hatchbacks for a long time, and then this is what restarted hatchbacks for the SI. So very, very cool to see that. Here is your cargo space. Now we got to talk about the looks, and this is obviously one of the most clear-cut changes from other Civic SIs. Like I mentioned earlier, this did not share a body with the standard Honda Civic. So every other generation of Honda Civic SI has looked pretty much identical to the standard Civics, just with maybe like a wing, maybe some added accents, things like that. This got a completely different body. It shared 0 body panels with the standard Civic, because this was actually imported from England as opposed to the other Civic SIs, which were built here. So over in Europe, if you're a European viewer, you might say that's how our normal Civics looked, and it was. You could buy regular standard base model Honda Civics with this body style in Europe. However, you could not buy them here. So that's always different. It's very noticeably European, and I don't really understand why. I think it's particularly the shape. It reminds me a lot of like the Peugeots and Renaults that they get over there. Sort of has that identity to it. The little taillights, maybe that's part of the puzzle, but overall just has that very European look because, well, it is actually European. And it's the only time that Honda has done that. At least since the EP3, we haven't gotten the European version of things. We've always had our own version. So, kind of an interesting backstory. But with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the 2002 Honda Civic SI? Well, I was so excited to finally drive an EP3. There has been a gap in my Honda Civic knowledge and reviews ever since I started this channel, and so now I get to fill that gap. There's some good points and there's some bad points about this car. First of all, let's get the bad out of the way. No LSD is kind of tough, especially for the performance vehicle, when you could get LSDs on other Civic SIs. So that is kind of a downside. The other downside is the fact that because this is sort of a one-off body style, finding parts, at least here in America, is not easy. And so when a previous owner hit a deer in this car, they sold it off for super cheap because no one wanted to fix it, because no one wanted to try to find the parts to fix it. So I assume that a lot of other EP3s met their demise in that similar way. However, let's talk about some of the good points. First of all, this is the first Civic Si to get the K20. Now, it's not the best K20 that they ever made, but it was a K20 and started that lineage that went on for a while, to the point actually where you can still buy a K20 today in the standard Civic Sport. But the K20 is touted as one of the best engines to come out of Honda, and you can always tell that because people swap it into other chassis. People swapped B and D series across Hondas. That's not really anything too new. But when you start seeing K-swapped Miatas, K-swapped E30s, K-swapped S2000s, then you really know that the engine is something special because they're starting to put it into other vehicles. The EP3 also ushered back in the hatchback Civic Si, where the Civic Si was originally a hatchback, and then they moved to coupe only, and then they came back to hatchback for this, and now today they are sedan only. I've always preferred hatchbacks, so of course I'm going to like this body style and the fact that the EP3 was offered in it. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'll complain about the little stuff. It's still a Civic Si. It still has one of the best shifters in the world. It still has a fun, buzzy engine, and I'm having a good time. This isn't a dud of a car. It's not this lackluster, boring vehicle. It's just something out of the blue, especially for the Si name. It sings a little bit of a different tune, if you will. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Alberto for letting me take out his Civic Si. I appreciate him very, very much and making my dreams come true of driving an EP3. He's been absolutely wonderful to work with, and I appreciate Alberto very, very much. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.